The school of thought that I was raised in was you have all these different sports and you use them as tools in your tool chest. So depending on the conditions, you use the right sport for those conditions. And because I grew up in a time when all these sports were being innovated and invented right here on the North Shore of Maui, it was natural for me to get into them and be able to progress with the sports as they grew. And of course, Jaws, Pe'ahi was a spot that was being ridden and pioneered since I was very little. It was natural to think, oh, ultimately you got to be able to do everything out there, because it's one of those unique big waves where no matter what time of the day it is, it's good for some sort of sport. The ultimate test of your ability is to go out to a wave like Pe'ahi, Jaws, and see what you're made of. Just when I thought that the season was done and dusted, we had one more shot at it. We had one more big swell, and when we first showed up, the swell was really north, and the waves were big and chunky and borderline evil, and it was the perfect sport to attack first was on the tow-in board. I had spent the entire winter up to this point designing, refining, and working closely with the board builders at Kitesurfing to make the ultimate tow board, or at least the best tow board that I could possibly ride. And we finally hit the nail on the head. It made the waves seem easier than they maybe were. And my confidence got to a point where I was like, okay, I gotta really lock down this front flip down the wave, this front barrel roll. I don't even know how many waves I caught, but it was more than I could count on two hands. But it was time to transition to the next sport. You know, I had a list of things in my head that I wanted to do, and it had been a while since I'd really tried to attack as many sports in one day as possible. And today's goal was 7 sports. So I went to the boat, and having dialed in my foiling setup, I thought it was time to really wing a giant wave. One of the highlight rides that I did in fact have wasn't necessarily the biggest one, but it was one that I caught with my brother, and I had caught in the wave from really far out, and I was pretty committed to the ride, and he had been waiting a while, and luckily those waves are so big that a lot of times if not a lot of waves are coming in, we'll end up just riding multiple waves. But in the back of my head, I'm like, oh gosh, I really have to make this ride now, because my brother is really deep, kind of due to the fact that I'm here, and if he doesn't get taken out by the lip, I don't want to fall and have my foil cut him in half too. By the end of that ride, I knew we made it to the channel. I decided to do a big boost over him. And in that moment, I was like, wait, there's still a chance I'm gonna land on him. Fortunately, he dodged probably 3 bullets. And you know, he had pretty good luck that day. Like most surfers, we watch all the different sea life interact with the ocean and the waves around us. You know, you watch dolphins and how they can surf the wave. You watch pelicans, some of the most graceful wave riders there are, without even ever touching the wave, but using that, you know, wind energy that's going up the face of the wave. That's always kind of stewed in my mind. And to get one step closer to being maybe like a bird, I went back to the boat, swapped out the foil for my towing board, and went back out there. And the idea behind it is, now that you've kind of removed remove the foil, you have a little bit more freedom in the air, and you can kind of land at any part of the wave. Regardless if it's choppy, you don't need a perfect landing in order to engage that foil. And so I just wanted to fly like a bird. Sports that up to this moment that I had done were really spin-offs of kitesurfing in a sense. It's really a perfect vehicle to get towed into really giant waves. You know, really the first people to ride Pe'ahi at its full potential was on windsurfers. And every time I go out and windsurf, I think about that. You know, the sail upwind that's a couple miles with nobody around. And to be able to go back and do that and, you know, be the only one out in the water, you kind of like put your head into where they were. And it definitely makes it seem scary again. You know, there's no longer a comfort zone because you're like a man on the moon. Kind of a newer sport that has come out in the past few years, which is a spin-off of all the other water sports that I did that day up to that point, is parawinging. The ability to tow yourself in and then have your hands free is something that no other wind sport has. And so it was on the list. Okay, when I go out there, I gotta parawing this thing. Was the biggest wave that maybe I had foiled up to this point. I was frantically pulling in this parawing, putting it under my arm, getting it all tight and holding it. Then I realized where I was. I was going Mach 10 on my foil when that wave broke. It kind of broke in front of me, but I had so much momentum and speed, I was able to kind of come around it, and that was it. That's all I needed from that. You know, of course, it was only 6 sports. There was a 7th to do. Why not leave, I would say, the biggest unknown and perhaps the scariest for the very last ride? And that was on the twin tip. That was on the wakeboard. It's a very much of an unknown. You're riding with fins this small on a board that is totally designed to be towed by something, whether it's a kite or a wakeboard boat. It's really not meant to be surfed with nothing in your hands. But having enough confidence and comfort from all the sports leading up to the last ride, I had to go for it. I had to see if it's possible. And the idea behind it was just always snowboarding, the ability to be able to go switch. And me being able to play with going goofy foot and regular foot, that adds such a different approach to wave riding in itself. It keeps it really entertaining and fun. So everything here is not to prove anything to anyone, but to have fun by doing it. To wrap it all up, there's still a lot to be done, and I thank all of my heroes and the innovators of the past, the Strapped crew, for opening my mind to all this and allowing me to be the one to have a lot of fun.